My name's Coach Kevin Franklin. It's been kind of a unique week because I've been coaching a long time. I just wrapped up my 31st year in the classroom, 31st year of coaching. But about 7, 8 years ago, our club started to offer women's club, right? So the club I'm at, Lancaster Alliance Wrestling, it's in Lancaster City in Pennsylvania, joined with Beat the Streets Lancaster to offer just a girls version. And so I started coaching there in 2017. I was still coaching guys at that time. And then as that progressed, things began to change. My son, who was wrestling, was graduating high school, was kind of like a transitional phase for me. And I traveled with PA USA in 2019, the first time to Fargo and the national duels, which was only the second year in Tulsa that year. I think that was the very second year they did it. And so that kind of just opened up my eyes back in PA. Like we're a strong wrestling state. I think you guys are aware of that. But the girls, like we were way behind, right? Like I think over half the nation was already approved or moving that way before we even got that ball rolling. So I kind of got sucked into this vortex I never expected. Was on sanctioned PA, which helped get it approved by PIAA. Keep coaching the national teams right now. I'm currently the 16U women's director for PA. So that's running its second year. So I was, the person responsible for building our duels teams that competed out in Indiana a couple weeks back. Do a lot of work with the Fargo trip and everything. So it's been a really unique thing. But the other thing that was exciting was the first school to actually approve an all-girls team in Pennsylvania was J.P. McCaskey High School, which is about 8 minutes down the road. I live right outside of the city of Lancaster. I teach in a different district. But I was trying to get things moving for ladies there, and it was the year of COVID. We got hit March of 2020, and we're not going to be able to do it. And no disrespect to my district, but I know how that goes. That means it's probably like 4 or 5 years out in the future, right? But you're coming into your late 20s in the classroom. If you're trying to build a program, you don't have infinite time left. So I was like, this just isn't going to work. And people kept telling me, take a look at McCaskey. So I applied and I got the job. And I've been the head coach for the girls team at McCaskey, which is over here. And I'll give you a little bit of demographics because when we come to the periodization for one of my athletes, I'm going to get you guys to design your own little plan for peaking. But if you look over here to the left, that's our high school team. So it's a small city in Pennsylvania. PA's weird, okay? You got Philly, and then you got everything else. And I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and if you go to northern PA, they act like Philadelphia should just be cut off the state and thrown to its own island, and Pittsburgh's unique. Then you got a couple of smaller cities. South Central PA, they call it. It's really still in the southeast, but you got Lancaster, York, Reading, Harrisburg, which is the capital city. All smaller cities. Reading's about 72,000, 60's about 59,000 for Lancaster. Harrisburg's actually smaller than that. York's smaller than that. But they're cities. And so even though it's not a bunch of geography, it brings a lot of those issues that you got. So where I coach, you could take a look at the demographics of the team that I've got there. It's a 90% poverty rate in this school, largely a Hispanic city, although we have a lot of African-American kids. We did have 2 white girls show up this year. A little blonde-haired, blue-haired girl came in. I thought she made a wrong turn somewhere, but she was with us this year. And so we're lucky we had a Beat the Streets chapter get started years ago. I love that because wrestling's just not one of the sports that is easy to get into the cities, and we've got cities all over the nation that are doing a great job bringing that in there. So these girls have done a fantastic job. But I want you to keep that in mind when we talk about the plan I put together for the one girl, because she has a lot of obstacles in her way to just train that most kids do not, right? And we talked about growth mindset. What do you do when you run into obstacles? You got to work past them. And I always say to the kids, hey, champions don't make excuses. They find ways to succeed. And that's champions in life, right? Because not a lot of the kids you're going to coach in an average high school be champions there. This was last week at the Palestra, Beat the Streets. I know we got a few kids that were here. They were there with us last week, right? Cleveland in the house, right? You believe me that I was there now? You didn't believe me, did you? Right? And over here, that's the club. We did a clinic earlier in the spring, just a freestyle one. This was a couple weeks ago. We are 16U back-to-back national champs for Pennsylvania with the girls. So that's kind of exciting to be a part of that. I don't take a lot of credit for that because you have some talented kids that show up. You just hopefully don't wreck the car when you get to coach them for a week. You know what I mean? It's not like you have to do more than just keep them mentally prepared. So that's kind of what keeps me busy. And I'm here with you guys this week because the education programs that they offer us through USA Wrestling are phenomenal. And the more I got involved with the girls and climbed up in leadership in the state, the more I wanted to learn. So I started my silver and I got that knocked out. And I wasn't even planning on a goal, but Mike kind of almost made that impossible. He's like, hey, you're going to do this. I'm like, yeah, Mike, I'm not sure. And then next thing I know, I'm like flying down that road. And this is like a presentation. But the one thing that I worked on in the last couple of years that I found really mentally taxing was this periodization plan. And I knew what it meant But I really had a hard time unpacking it. I started about 2 springs ago researching, and the more I dove into it, the more it just confused me. I know Marty said it, well, you don't know what you don't know, right? And the more it was like the old Shrek thing, the onions are like, you peel the layers of the onion. The more I peeled away, I'm like, crap, where's this end? You know what I mean? Like, how deep of a dive can we go into periodization? I found a ton for weight training. And I'm not, I teach social studies, right? So I got a master's degree in education and curriculum instruction, not in physiology and strength training. But that was an aspect to it. So it's things like nutrition, right? So all of these are pieces that could be part of your plan for making you the best that you can be. So what we're going to look at here, let me get this, see if I can figure this thing out here. All right, success. All right, periodization, prepping to peak. Some pictures there. I just grabbed a random one from Fargo, I guess, Kamal Bay there. That was our 16U girls when we won Fargo for the first time 2 years ago. And that'll probably be one of my favorite pictures ever, just to see that excitement and putting PA on the map on the girls' side, which was really cool. So this is where we're going to get you guys discussing. Turn to your partner. Just talk this out a little bit. What is periodization? Any idea? Sometimes your answer is, I don't know. I have no clue. So talk to your partner. What is it? Real quick pair share.
Periodization.
All right, I forgot to add this. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1. You guys will clap. That means we kind of go silent and then turn our attention back up there. Ready? Let's practice it. 3, 2, 1. Good. So when you guys are pair sharing, because you're going to be doing that a lot, we'll turn the focus back up here real quick. Any ideas? Some of you may know. Many of you guys are blessed with fantastic coaches that do this for you, and some of you are probably like, no, I'm not sure that I ever heard of that before. Got a hand down here? Who was that? Somebody had a hand up? No, you guys are faking me out? One of you had a hand up. All right. Go ahead.
Something about like time.
So dealing with time? Absolutely. Any other thoughts there? Go ahead.
Is that like managing time?
Managing the time? Yep, excellent. Well, I teach 8th grade, right? And one of the big challenges is we get a lot of stuff that sounds real fancy on paper, but it's not user-friendly for the kids, right? Sometimes they'll give me an answer. I'm like, that's not your words. If you were sitting at lunch talking to your friends, that's not how you would explain that concept to them. So I want to make sure when you guys go through this that it is more user-friendly. But I pulled, and all these resources are in here. I dropped the whole entire Google slide onto the Band app. So when we get later into it, you could open that up and just connect to some of those resources as you begin to look at your own things here. So this was an online definition that I found here. Periodization training is the deliberate manipulation of training variables to optimize performance for competition, prevent overtraining, and progress performance. Variable adjustments in duration, load, or volume are planned out over a specific period of time to achieve these objectives. For athletes, the goal is to mix up load variables, training intensity, or volume at different times of the year to allow the athlete to peak at certain times. These peak times usually coincide with competition. So what in the world does that mean? Right, take a second with your partner and just discuss that, like 30 seconds here. What is that actually saying? That's a lot. Go for it. All right, 3, 2, 1. Oh, that was bad. Let's try it again. 3, 2, 1. Good. Okay, let's take a look up front here. I hope this makes better sense for you. Well, you did that already. Okay, in other words, periodization is deliberately designed training to have you at your absolute best, right? When it matters the most. Okay, now that's simplified, but there's a lot to it, right? What we're going to pull apart is like, when do I need to be my best, right? When does that happen in your calendar year? How many times does it happen? We got some kids in Pennsylvania that seem to be peaking like every week. You guys know some of the names, right? Machine Gun Mindset, right? I don't know, Bo, that guy's peaked every Saturday and Sunday. Like, they're going to world level events every week. That's a lot, you know what I mean? So like, I'm trying to wrap my brain around that and to process that. And then others, it's like I got 2 or 3. We'll talk more about like your Olympians. How often do they need to peak? Do they? Yeah, once every 4 years, right? Make the qualifiers. There's a couple times in there, but they're not doing 9 million tournaments in a year. You get to a certain age, your body won't support that. Okay? You get to a certain age, it won't support one practice, but that's a different story. All right, so physically, technically, nutritionally, mentally, emotionally, and possibly spiritually, for some of you guys that are of strong faith, does that impact how you compete? Sure. Okay, I've seen some of you guys with the shirts and stuff like that. Like, we're whole human beings, right? There's a lot that makes us up, not just our muscle or our speed or whatever, okay? Now, if you guys don't, you're going to have the whole thing, so if you're trying to get that, you can probably just download the whole thing, make copies, it'll all be there for you, so just in case I move too fast. So the goal is to have you peak at the right time, When do you want to peak? This is next thing. Now, this one I do want you to write down. What are the most important events in your calendar year that you want to kick butt, take names, we can say break necks and cash checks, right? You want to get out there and you want to make sure you're walking out with your hand raised, you got that gold medal. What are the most important ones? It can't be everyone. What are the most critical in your year? Talk to your partners, jot a few of those down on paper, okay? All right, 3, 2, 1. Good. Okay, make sure you have some of those down on writing. What are some of your peak events? Anybody got one you want to share? I could guess a few pretty easily. What are the most important ones? Let's go back here. Fargo, coming up, right? I hope your plan has you ready to rock in a week and a half, right? That you're ready to go. What else? States. We call it states in PI. That's some international debate. Your state, whatever. Okay, go ahead. US Open. Okay, so people may be trying to get to world teams, right? Even higher. Go ahead.
I say December toward like Ironman and Brexville.
Okay, so some of your in-season tournaments that are really important, Ironman may have more value. And honestly, depending on what state you're from, your state tournament may not be that valuable to you. You might have something outside of it that has higher value. I would not say that in Pennsylvania. PWA state championship gives you some significant bragging rights. You know what I mean? Like to win PAs that's a dream for kids, right? Other ones?
Super 32.
Super 32. Go ahead. Which one's that? Okay, Doc Buchanan. One more. Okay, so just starting very local for you to make sure you get to that spot. All right, so this was just me thinking out loud, and most of you guys talked about that. Your state tournament, right? World team trials, worlds, if you make the team. Now you're peaking it. If you don't make the team, then maybe that one gets moved to a different outcome. I didn't hear anybody say NHSCAs. Maybe that's because of more of an East Coast. We're thinking that. Okay. Anybody go out there? Virginia Beach, right? So that for some kids, that's a big deal. National duels teams, maybe. Depends what your state does with that. Fargo, Super 32. All these you guys kind of mentioned, right? So where do you start in developing the plan? This was I was trying to take this in from all that stuff that was spinning in my mind and make it more user-friendly for you guys. And the one thing that became evident to me is start at the end and work your way backwards. So if you, who said world team trials are like, so if that's would probably be your highest one, I would imagine, like making a world team is more important than winning a state title. State title would be a stepping stone to it. So you want to start there and work backwards from that. And that state championship might be another mini peak within it, something to help you get to that top. I was talking, I think it was Coach Marty, we were talking about like some kids say their goal is to make it 2 states. So their peaks maybe 2 weeks before if it's a district or regional tournament. If you just want to make it and you did that and you're going to go 0-2, maybe win 1 and feel content, then your peak to meet your goal is really earlier than the tournament. We, as coaches, we would hope you get it out to the state tournament and do better. But so be deliberate with what you're thinking about, all right? So there's 3 phases to it. And this is where like pulling us apart and when actually this stuff I got and then trying to put it into practice is where it really got crazy. So when you look at prefixes, macro, meso, micro, macro is big, meso is medium, right? And micro is small. So I pulled pictures from New York City. You got Lower Manhattan over there. That's your big picture, bird's eye view. If you flew out here, you probably, and then you get a window seat on the plane. I love to look out and just see where you're at so you can identify anything. When you pull into the cities, I always think that's kind of cool. Meso would be like walking through the neighborhood at a mid-level view. I could see the buildings around. I'm getting a much more closer up view, but I don't know what it looks like on the inside. I don't have the real finite details yet. The micro takes me into your condo, your apartment, your house. I can look out and see the world around me, but the perspective of New York is a lot different. It's cool to look out your window and see the city, but it's not the same one you had in an airplane, is it? Right, so we go from like big, medium to small with that. That's how that phases out. So here's the 3 phases and definitions that I pulled out. Your macro are the big picture planning cycles. These typically span a longer period of time, such as a year before competition for high school athletes. However, they can span longer period of time, such as 4 years for athletes competing in the Olympic Games. So just brief conversation. What do you think this looks like for a high school age? And I know we got some kids that might be older middle school in here too, right? But like secondary school. Quick conversation with your partner. What do you think? What does this look like for a high school aged athlete? All right, real quick conversation. Go for it. All right, let's fade to the middle here. Mesocycle. Okay, mesocycle. So these tend to be 4 to 6 week cycles within the larger macro cycle, right? So we're breaking it down to like that next level down. And they can involve 3 weeks of progressive intensity training followed by like a week of lower intensity. And so kind of curious, if you guys are going to Fargo, next week, you might be grinding because you got to get weight off, right? So you're having to practice harder. But like the day before you compete, how hard should your practices be?
Like,
You know what I mean? Like, should you be broken and beat up physically? And then the question you got to ask is like, how much before that? So when we did the nutrition thing the other day, like if you don't get your nutrition under control, you could be making like the normal flow of your periodization for your training more difficult because you're having to go harder closer to the event when maybe you should be just hitting repetitions, and we call it play wrestling. You know what I mean? Working through technique, positional things, mental awareness of the mat, like how do we control the environment? A lot of that stuff probably would have higher value 2 or 3 days out instead of just kicking the crap out of you to get the last 7 pounds off. But when you're 10 pounds over 2 days out, you're beating your body up. Is that sensible for a good periodization plan? Well, I think the easy answer there is no, right? That doesn't make much sense. So that's the middle level. What's it look like? Okay, quick conversation. You're 4 to 6 weeks out of that big event that you want to peak for. What's that look like to you? Real quick conversation with your partner. Go for it. All right, last part here, microcycle. These are short duration cycles within the meso. They tend to last about a week. They can vary in intensity on the different training days of the week. So I want you to be specific here. We're just talking up front here. The most important peak was what I wanted, and that was the World Team Trials. So pick the week before you compete. What does it look like? The week before you compete, what would it look like? What does that mean to you? So talk that out a little bit, all right? Whatever your peak is. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, focus up front here real quick. So, and this is where this really got interesting for me, and this is why I had a hard time with it, because I go real cerebral with this stuff, and I just kept pulling pieces apart and then feeling like the more I figured out, the more I was clueless as to what I wanted to do or what the end product should look like. So as you think of whether it's that macro, meso, or microcycle in the training, we have a lot of areas like of ourselves that we need to train to be a high level athlete. So when you think of focus areas for your training, think about your age, your ability level, the goals that you have set for yourself in the sport. What are areas in your training for that macro, micro, meso cycle that you would want to focus on? Okay, focus areas for training. So real quick conversation, go ahead and have that now. What are your focus areas? Right, we've talked about a few of them here in these classrooms, right?
I like nice guys for that.
This is where you can like work on newer techniques. The mesocycle is starting to hold down because you get everything.
All right, sounds like we're kind of fading off that. Okay, so I heard some interesting things. I like to just walk up and down and try to listen. I heard people talking about specific technique, which is definitely something that you may want to include in there, and you'll see some of what I have pieced together includes that. But maybe you didn't think big enough. Like, technique is part of your focus area, right? Is strength training part of your focus? Do you need to get stronger to compete? If we're in season, it's not the same lifting as you're doing in August, is it?
no.
Right? So that's why you need your strength, the people that really know that stuff to get you to peak within all these other things that are happening. How about flexibility? You guys are young, you're way more flexible, but are you doing anything to keep your body loose? Are you doing stuff that's recovery, like rehabbing? Flexibility, in the right way could help avoid injuries, correct? Mental preparation there. Anybody do any of these mindset coaches? Okay. And we talked about the whole mental side the other day. Nutrition, is that important for wrestlers? You have way more information now than we did as kids. I don't want to give one of those old school stories, but you just didn't have it. We kind of knew what was healthier food. There's a lot of distractions out there for nutrition right now. Culture has made it very hard to eat healthy. It's easy to eat junk. It's just everywhere, processed foods. And where I coach, the kids are poor. So what I call it is they live on a poverty diet. And we understand what that means? You get cheap food. Cheap food is not good food. They don't go to Whole Foods store because it's too expensive. They go to the outlet stores that have like discounted crap, and it's all the worst processed food you could have. And they park the McDonald's right next to our high school, right? So I tell them, if I come in here to practice, we practice from 5 to 7. I come in from practice and you're holding a McDonald's bag, my head will explode, right? And we just talk about good stuff in, good stuff out. Like, if you're serious about this, you're going to start to own that and not make excuses. Oh, but coach, but there's no buts. You know, when they start doing that's when I get really frustrated, because some of you that I'm working with on the squad knows I'm a diabetic. I've been a diabetic for 33 and a half years. So I'm like, I don't want to hear you crying about watching your weight for like a couple weeks. I've been doing it for 3 decades, taking shots. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, boo-hoo. You got to like, you signed up for this, right? So do we own our nutrition? What about our fitness, the cardio, right? Are we good with that? So these are all focus areas. Is there any other bigger ones that I missed? Did somebody come up with a different one than that? All right. And now maybe, was that another one? Okay, but that could fit with any of them, right? You could do that with anybody. So let's take a second here and then make your own list. What's realistic for you to want to prioritize on your plan? So jot this down, okay? What's like the must-haves for your plan as you train through the year? Not every kid's there. Like where I coach, it's hard to get the girls to strength train. It's just not easy to do. So I put my attention on other places where I can have impact. You know, so what would you want to include with yours? So take a second, just write that down. You can do a quick pair share once you get it down. It may be comprehensive. It might be all of them. It might be 2 or 3. I don't know. It's your plan. You got to figure it out. Now, this may or may not be an issue for you, okay? It is for me where I coach. I'm going to give you a mesocycle for one of my young ladies, and she's been in the States for 3 years. She got here from St. Thomas. Her family's originally from the Dominican, but she grew up in St. Thomas. Showed up for a try at night. She's going on to be 7th in the state, 5th in the state, took 3rd in the state this year. Only loss she had at the state tournament was in the semifinals to a girl that's ranked 10th in the nations, an All-American, and it was a takedown loss. Like she gave up this other girl, Caroline, I've worked with her at the state level. She's good. All right, no excuses. My girl, Jarella, like she had a chance. Caroline ate her up on the double. She tried to chest wrap, which a lot of times with girls doesn't work, and she gave up the 2. So 3rd period, it's 4-2. She gets 2 escapes. Takes one of those desperation shots with 17 seconds left, loses 7-2. But it was a 1 takedown match. Like if she'd scored that 1 at the end or 1 at the beginning, it would go differently. The girl that took 2nd in the state, she went on to beat the snot out of her at PAUSA states in freestyle. So I'm convinced if she could get to the final, she could have gotten there. But this girl would go home from practice every night, and we'd practice from 5 to 7 and go clean a local hospital for 2 hours. Why? For fancy cell phones, cars? No. Pay rent, pay groceries, right? They're poor. And she's one of the sweetest kids you'd ever run into, but to get things to work for her, there's a lot of obstacles that got to be taken out of the way. She's on the national duels team. She'll be at Fargo, but I fundraise like crazy with the larger team to get those costs down to nothing. Like $100 is too much for some of these families. $50 is too much. Gear is too much. Thankfully, we got beat the streets. We got our headgear, our shoes, sports bras. You know what I mean? Like some of you guys take that for granted. You know, sports bras, $60, $70 for a decent one. You don't need just one of them, right? If you're a female athlete, If you're a female athlete, that's huge. So in our school, there's a weight room, but it's trash. I've been there 5 years now. They've had a paid strength training coach who's been employed, I think 3 months total. They can't keep anybody. They finally got a guy this year. Yeah, I'll have it open Thursday, Friday between these odd hours. I'm like, that's not helpful. You know what I mean? Like to build a strength program with just 2 days consecutively on the back end of the week, it just doesn't work. And the few times some of the girls showed up, all the football guys were in there, and you could probably predict how that played out for young ladies with all the football guys in there just, and they're like, I'm not going back, coach. So there's a lot that could be obstacles to you achieving those focus areas, right? Work issues. That girl had to take her home from sectionals, and she worked after sectionals. She worked after regionals. And her mom was asking if we can get her home early enough on Wednesday night for states if she could go clean that night. Could you imagine at your state tournament having to run home so you could clean? 2 hours in a hospital, basically sheets and, bedpans and all that stuff like that, like literally cleaning filth. So we have a lot to work through with her periodization to make up some of those pieces that just come easier for other people. Money's a problem. Proximity, transportation. You don't have a car. That might be foreign to most of you guys, but not for all of the kids that I coach. Family responsibilities. I'll have kids show up like, Coach, I can't be there today. Why not? I got to watch my little brothers and sisters because my mom has to go to work now. She just got called in. And you're like, wow, you're off the team. Well, they're homeless next if they can't pull that off, right? Most of you guys don't have to worry about that, but you might have other things, and maybe you do have some of those things. So real quick, pair share, are there any life issues, like heavy, real, not excuses, don't get me wrong, you know what I'm saying? Like, these aren't excuses, but they're life issues that you have to actually tackle and contend with to be at the best of your ability. So real quick conversation with your partner, what do you think? Are there any things like that that you have to get out of the way to be at your best? All right, I have to climb up here for the next part because this one's a little bit harder to navigate. And I want to go somewhat quicker through this. So again, as I was listening in, there's definitely obstacles, right? I don't care, you know, I sometimes talk to the kids that I coach too. They always have this image of the kids out in the suburbs that their lives are perfect, right, and everything's good. I'm like, and I tell them, look, be careful how you judge, because you might be looking at that house that looks real fancy and it's like a house of horrors. You know what I mean? You may have two parents that are always fighting, and there's alcoholism, you know, like there's problems everywhere, right? So you have to like sort through what your obstacles are if you're trying to make your way to be the best you can. And life sometimes kind of impedes. But I want to give you a quick overview, and I want to focus more quickly on the mesocycle that I had for that girl that I was telling you about. So in the next couple slides are just basically taking a look at the macro, the micro, and the meso that I put together for where I coach for the regular season, not like freestyle and all that. But I looked at this year, right? This was the plan I put together, and I started it in October. Why October? Well, because that's when we're kind of like getting back into the mix. Now you'll notice though it goes all the way through the end of September. So it's set up, breaking it down with a full year cycle. Now, to be honest, what were the peaks that I was thinking of this year? Peaks for the high school girls I'm trying to encourage would be the PIAA state tournament for as many as we could get to be there, and then also to see if we can get kids to Fargo. That would be the goals, peaks. Now, that doesn't mean every kid on that team wants to peak. We got brand new girls, they're just like hoping to win a match. I don't think they even comprehend what this is about. But for the more elite, and then when we finish the state tournament, even our off-season practices, I flip it straight to freestyle, because the girls, that's their primary form in college. So I wanted to go right to freestyle all off-season. I wish a lot of the guys' teams would do that too, but they seem to shy away from it. So then you can see it breaks down training week cycle 1 all the way till the end, 52. And then you have phases, and I color coded them like preparation, transition. This is the place where like preseason, pretty low key. Here we're getting ready to crank up. This is the start of the season. Now we begin to enter competition. Christmas week, a little bit throttled down because you don't have as much packed in there. But if there's a tournament that gets added, then that picks up. We had a tournament, and then we had several days after it. So it was those few days after where we kind of throttled down a little bit. Then you're kind of in the heart of your season. Peaking here, sectionals, regional, states, right? A little bit of a break. We transition into freestyle, and then you can kind of see it go through. This would be Northeast Regionals. This would be PA USA States. This takes you out to Fargo, right? But here is our national duals teams. We had several girls there, but I didn't include that as a peak. And then when you get out, I want them to take a break for a couple weeks after Fargo, and then we begin to just ease back in as we go. And so the next thing that I had identified there was like the numbers of practices a week. Obviously during the season, it's way higher. When you get to the off season, it's like 2 to 4, maybe 1 to 3 in those later summer months. And then what I did down here at the bottom was H is high intensity, like medium intensity, low intensity, right? So some of those are going to deal with like the competition. And then at the peaking phase, you'll notice that I try to drop that back a little bit. I don't want them to be, I want them fresh. I don't want them injured for the time to compete. Like their cardio should be there. We're just maintaining and refining things at that point. And then I put all of the major events that, you know, were on our calendar year. So this talks a little bit about what the phases mean and what the intensity means. Now this, if you open up the document that I link, you could look at this in greater detail later. I don't want to spend terrible amount of time there. So here goes a mesocycle, and I did this one based off of getting them ready to hit sectionals. So it's, you know, it takes you out 4 to 6 weeks. This was more like 4, and then the 6, 7 would be through sectionals, regionals, and the state tournament, competition phase, and then it goes out like days in advance, like 15 days, you know, 45 to 30, 29 to 10, then your last 9 to 2 going into the competition. You can see how that breaks down specific focus areas, technique, conditioning, rest and nutrition, and then a little bit more on some of the technique down there. And then you can see how this was neutral, top, bottom, because this is folk style season, right? And all those things are included there. Now, again, you could go back and just sort of check that later and use that to help you form your own. This was the micro. This was the week of sectionals. So we got 2 hours, but at the bottom, I also put they're not going to last 2 hours. That's our slot, but we're going to throttle that back. And it's basically my, if you want to call it a practice plan, lesson plan, whatever you got for the days right up to competition. But even there, it's warm-ups, nutrition, make sure they refuel properly, right? Most of them don't know what they're doing with that. Discuss the tournament logistics. How does it work? For some of them, they've never been to a sectional tournament before. And then the mental side of it. So that would be going on all the way through, but that's kind of like a recap for it. And so those things are sort of embedded there. That would take you through there. And then if you're opening this, I got like a lot more in here. This was like other stuff I did just for myself. But if you're looking for sources, like I told you, I kept going and going and going. And here's a whole lot that I linked in here that has many, many sources that hopefully would help you out with that. All right, let me jump back here. So just real quick, I kind of went through that fast. That's like macro, meso, micro. What are your, that's pretty detailed. That took me a long time to get, it just kind of clicked, and then it was easier to dump it on the document once it clicked, but I spent weeks just spinning and spinning and spinning before it started to manifest for me. So just talk about that for like 30 seconds with your partner. What are some of your thoughts with that? It could be like, man, that's a lot, or I'm confused, or okay, I like that, I didn't know that. So just have a quick conversation with your partner. Go for it. All right, guys, let's jump up here. I want to show you the mesocycle that I put together, which we're still in the last few days. This is up to Fargo for the young lady in the middle. Her name is Jorelis Peguero del Rosario. Okay, good luck saying that. Everybody butchers it. They even, on her credentials for PIAA, they actually cut her name in half front to bottom. We were laughing like they couldn't get that name fit in there, so it's a mess. But she's the one I was telling you about. Fantastic kid. I mean, one of the nicest human beings that I've ever met. She works her butt off. She does everything the right way, but she just has so much stacked against her in her daily life, and yet she doesn't complain. You know, I've had conversations. She's like, Coach, I just feel like I'm blessed. I can't, if I was still in St. Thomas, I would have never found wrestling. And she's just like, I thank you for everything that you guys do. And like, it's hard to not want to be in her corner. Do you know what I mean? Like, you got a kid like that, you want them to do well. She'll be wrestling in college next year, pretty good academic institution, D3 back in Pennsylvania, but I'm more excited because she's got scholarships out the wazoo. She's a good student too, and she's basically gonna be able to go to college cost neutral, you know, and for a kid like that, the trajectory of her life is being changed. I think wrestling helped her see a bigger picture, and she's excited. I can't wait to see what she can do on the mats next year too. But challenges I already told you about: work schedule, finances, transportation, no weight room access, well, limited. But she did have an old beater car. She finally got a license, got a, I don't know how old it is, Honda Accord with like 260,000 miles on it. Smoke's coming out of it every time she drives. But then she found a Planet Fitness down the road about 5 minutes from where she lives, because what does Planet Fitness offer kids in the summer? Free memberships, right? Okay, free memberships, because our weight room stinks. And I met her at that because I work out at that same Planet Fitness. But you know what time she's in there? Because she needs to get the car back for other family members. 6 a.m., right? 6 a.m. So I've met her a couple times at the end of the school year to just go over some stuff. She's in there working on that stuff. All right, finding ways to work around these obstacles. And then she's working, and then she's going to practices later in the day. We've been scheduling practices, as many facilities as we can get with my assistant coaches, just so she can get a lot of one-on-one with them. Other obstacles, you know, you made the new national duels team, which is a good thing. You've been invited to represent PA. That's something you should be proud of. But that's a week out of your normal training moving towards Fargo. So you got to kind of incorporate that as you go through it. And graduation, like, it may sound silly, but you missed a day of practice we had to adjust because graduation was on a Thursday, which was a day we're normally in the room, right? So if you're trying to do this 6 weeks out and every day and every minute matters, graduation was a little bit of a thing. But she was in the very next day after graduation. I wasn't. I was getting ready to go to the beach, you know, called senior week, right? So when she graduated, she's back the next day practicing to try to get ready for the tournament, which is pretty amazing. So real quick, thoughts on that? What do you think? These types of obstacles, putting together a mesocycle, just real quick thought there, like an idea, whatever's in your mind. Go for it. All right, I'm gonna go fairly quickly through this part so we can get you to your part, which I wanna give you about 15 minutes minimum to work on here. But just some codification here. JPM, that's JP McCaskey, that's the high school. Those are the rooms that we had open. Now, it's not necessarily correlating with my regular practices. I'm in on Mondays and I'm in on Thursdays, but I'm scheduling an extra day where she just goes in with the assistant coaches. One time they couldn't make it, so it was like me and one of them. So that's like just working around her schedule. Law is the club practice, Lancaster Lions women's wrestling. So that's on Sunday. I kind of build her rest day on Mondays. strength train. There's graduation, open practice, strength train. And then you can see how this goes through the rest of June. We're obviously out of that. You can see the USA duels in Indiana right there in the middle. And now here we are, right? Strength train. What were we at Thursday? Yeah, she should be at practice tonight, okay? I'll be here, but she should be at practice with the other coaches this evening. And tomorrow, we're here, right? But a lot of people aren't doing anything tomorrow. I scheduled an open room, and she's going to go in with the assistants just one-on-one tomorrow and Saturday. She asked for that extra day to be added. I was going to leave. You can see I put the question marks on there to see what she wanted to do for that, but she wanted to be in there then. So we go to Fargo camp Sunday, camp, travel, competition, and then that's sort of the end of this mesocycle. Now, embedded in here, this is where it gets into some of the nitty-gritty, including conditioning variables. By week, we're looking at technique. Do you see that? So trying to get her prepped with technique as we make our way through to that cycle. Conditioning, this is what she's the worst with. She hates running. She wrestles 190. She's about 175 now. She keeps shrinking, but she's a little bit, 190 for girls is like your 220 guys, right? Okay, it's a little bit on the bigger side, and they don't like to run, okay? And she'd make every excuse, but she got it this year. So that Planet Fitness would get her on machines because she hates just regular running. That's fine. You don't like running? There's other ways to develop that cardio. So we have a few things built in here for her to add to work on that throughout. And you can see they're kind of embedded with the strength training days. And then because of weight room being a real issue, I found an online program that basically used body resistance. And we went out and got an exercise ball, and we had like a couple medicine balls that we sent home with her to utilize, and jump ropes and stuff like that. She lives in a little tiny row home in the city. It's got a small backyard. So, Coach, I don't have a lot of room. I'm like, you don't need it. You don't need a lot of room. You just need enough room that your body can move and get this stuff going, right? The green ones were ones that I couldn't find solutions for, right? The inverted towel row is like you're on one of those bars, you're laying this way and you're pulling up, working your strength and grip strength. Like I couldn't manufacture a squat rack to drop a regular bar for, right? And Planet Fitness isn't real good for that type of stuff either. So there's a few we had to kind of adjust and try to find other things to do. Plate pinches, we sent her with some plates, sent them home with her so she could walk and work on her grip strength going through. She could obviously do front and back bridges. Anybody could do that anywhere. And then it goes through weeks and other things. You could see like leg squats and all the way down again, partner pike ups, partner standing, those things. She maybe can grab her little sister and do it. I don't know that she wants to do that. And then through the third week, and these are all the things that are sort of embedded in there with just different strength ones, okay? Going to the last week. Now, I'm going to turn it to you guys. So that was her mesocycle. I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but I do know she's going to be way better prepared this year than she was last year when she ignored a lot of that. All right, I'm hoping that it works out well for her. If it doesn't, she's got nothing to feel bad for because she's done everything she can and done it the right way, So and then the mind is the next thing that we got to make sure is where it should be. So I want you guys to think of next year. A few of you already said it. What's your biggest peak event? And find it on the calendar. Use your phones to find the date. And I want you to go back, and then also find your focus areas. And then how many weeks you want to go back? Do you want to do 4? Do you want to do 5 or 6? Put the dates on the calendar. And then begin to backfill a little bit. You're going to start with the ending and then work your way moving forward once you start there, right? So how far? If I'm going back 4 weeks, it takes me to this date on the calendar. And you've got 2 sides to that. You got room for the notes at the bottom. How many days should be there? What time of the day does your training occur? Who assists you? School coach, club coach, strength coach, nutritionist, mindset coach? Do you realize they could have periodization within periodization? Right? I would go to a strength coach and give me a plan. Here's what I want. And I'm going to embed that with that larger, broader picture that I've got, right? So include that in there for yourself if they're there. Do they have their own plans? How do you coordinate with them? Identify specific things for each focus area you'd like to improve on. Are you going to go for 5 or 6? Or are you really focused on a 3? Notice with Jarrell, I didn't have every focus area in there. I can't. It's just not enough time, right? We're limited to a certain level. So we tried to take away everything we could and get the most out of the time we had available. It's far from perfect. If I could drop her off here and just let her train full time, I don't know how good she could become. You know what I mean? It's just not a reality of what we're dealing with. So what do you want to focus on? Then determine what week they make sense to be used for training relative to your peak. Are there any other competitions in your mesocycle phase that you need to be good for but not peaked for? Does that make sense? And that you got to incorporate that as you make your way through weight management, et cetera. identify the level of training intensity for the practices and the weeks out in advance. And then what resources do you need? Practice room, coaching staff, equipment, trainers, technology. You got the world at your fingertips. There's a lot more out there for you guys to find today. If you like electronic better and you got Google accounts, you could maybe download a calendar if that's easier for you to fill in. I wanted to make sure you at least had a hard copy. These are ones that I like Google Sheets and Docs because you could share that with other people in your life, and then they can be added as editors and you can collaborate with those people that are important to you. All right, so then just work on yours. So work on the mezzo 4 to 6 weeks. The rest of the time is going to be yours to just work on that. Take that with you. It's probably going to be just a work in progress. And then when you leave, if this isn't something that you've ever thought about, take it with you and then start to look for, it's too late for Fargo. We only got a week left, right? But as you think about next year, get your team, parents, everybody, get them together and say, hey, let's get something on paper so we could be the best we can be come that point next year. All right? So I'm going to give you guys time to work. Go ahead and jump in there. And if there's any questions, let me know. Everybody's got access to this Google slide. The links are all active and live. Make a copy, keep it, use it, do whatever you need to with that. How much time we got here? About 12 minutes till lunch, so get you guys working. Guys doing okay? Got some ideas where you're going? Which event?
I think for me it's going to be my Florida States.
Okay.
I'm going to have to be able to track back all the way to beating one of my teammates.
Okay, gotcha.
To make the even varsity spot.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's a good plan, and you got tons of time to work towards that, right? So.
But because I know I'm good enough to make it. Since I know I'm good enough to make it. I mean, in the future I'll be able to make it anyway.
Yeah.
My goal is to be the Olympian.
Okay. That's excellent. This I really, like I said, I enjoyed this. Oh, actually, once I figured it out, I enjoyed the front end. I was like, this is crazy. I couldn't make heads or tails because there's so many pieces. I'm looking at Olympians versus like, what do you do if you got a first year junior high kid that doesn't really care? You know what I mean? So on a team wide, I got game plan for the team, but then you individualize. When you have kids that are really rising up to elite levels, then we take them and we must sort of massage them out in a different direction. And the other kid that's just there because they want to be a part of something, frankly, I'm not that worried. Because I had another girl going to Fargo, first-year girl. She weighs 100 pounds. She walked right into a qualifying spot, right? Nice kid. It's changing her life. Wrestling is fantastic for her, but she's not really good yet, right? She barely won a couple matches. So Drew's like, Coach, are you putting one of these plans together for Jaylani? I'm like, no. It's like, why not? I'm like, she'll be lucky to win a match out there. You know, not trying to be disrespectful, but like you got a chance to get on the podiums. So I just want her to go out, have fun, see a bigger world, get off your block, know that there's things you can dream of. Now, next year, depending on what I see out of her going forward, she's worked hard. She's been at all the events in the spring, but she don't get it yet. You know what I mean? Like,
to me, that's kind of like how I was my summer year last year.
right.
I was able to go on to do my Florida freestyle Greco state
Gotcha.
tournament. I was just able to go. And so I went, but I didn't do as well as I wanted to.
Gotcha.
I was genuinely just new to the sport.
Right. And see, for a lot of people, that's a motivator, though. Just getting there.
And then after that, and when high school season started, slowly, I feel like it's inching along.
Yeah.
But slowly, like even now, it's still inching along.
Good.
But the flip is switching.
Yeah.
The light's almost on, you know?
Perfect. Yep. Well, hopefully then something like this gives you tangible things, and you can see how detailed it was for Draws, and that made it easier for her to follow. And I didn't go like that last year, and I learned a lot from putting this together because I had this done by early fall, and I'm like, I'm doing it differently from now on. because she didn't do her part, but I also know I could have done better to help her see why that's valuable. You know, what's needed to be at the best she can be, given some things we can and can't control, right? Not all there. Got something to start with?
No, I don't know what to peak for. I've got peaking for state.
State? Okay,
I don't know
perfect.
what to peak for.
Are you trying to, let's start at the highest. You trying to make a world team, or is that not where you're at yet?
It would be cool. That'd be cool, but like.
Is it realistic though at this point, you know?
Not really.
Okay, so then we drop down to what, like Fargo?
Fargo, yeah.
Is that realistic to be an All-American there?
Yeah.
Then start with that. Yep.
Like
Start with that.
NHSCA is like Fargo. Or Super 32. Like
Yeah,
those.
yeah, Super 30. I mean,
Like,
folks.
Like, it'd be cool to win like another state title, but it's not.
Yeah, yeah. So then, that's where I would kind of look at it. Like, are we there yet? Well, let's conquer this one. And when that one's locked down, then you're gonna probably want to get up to that next one up. 'Cause I've had kids that are like first-year wrestlers. I'm gonna be a state champ. Like, no, you're not. You can't even walk and chew gum in a straight line. Oh, I'm gonna work, and they come in like 3 times. So I worked hard this time. Like, you think that was working hard? I'll show you what state champions look like at PA, and it doesn't look like that, right? Yeah, it doesn't look like that. You think? Okay.
I think I would.
I hope you would. What weight?
120. I don't know who won it.
I don't know. Jack's Forest. I don't know.
Just wasn't one.
I know he didn't. I'm just messing with you. I don't know who it was. Whether it's AA or AAA, you got a little Bachman from Faith Christian. Bachman's a stud. Yeah. Well, it's AA or AAA though. AA Bachman. I don't know who's AAA this year. He had a good year. Yeah, he did well.
I want to ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that Coach Hack was talking about. He's like, he's diving into that now. You could put the parameters in. I want like
what you want.
11th grade doing this, and it spits it out like really complete.
I just took a picture.
Yeah, good.
I have an app.
Now it is 2 sides if you needed it. If you want to do,
app to schedule my
do you? Perfect. If you needed 6 weeks, that's why I put like 2 sides on there. But yeah, and as a classroom teacher, I hate ChatGPT because nobody wants to do their work. But for something like this, that's a tool that helps. You know what I mean? Because I did this we had to plan it ourselves. But on the other hand, I still think understanding how you do it has value. It's like kids, they can use a calculator for everything. Then you got kids that can't make change at a store, right? I give them 1037, and it's a 737 bill. They don't know give me $3 back, kid, right? Because they don't know how to do any of the math. Well, I know the computer could do it, but what happens if the computer don't work? At least you understand the basics. If you get it, then let ChatGPT. I'm going to use that for individualized plans in the future, make it easier for our kids. You know, makes perfect sense. Good stuff.
You need to steal it from the Olympians. That's an Olympic fan.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me get you guys to wrap up real quick. So, periodization. Just think of it as planning to peak, being your best at the right time. There's a lot to unpack there. The wheels are turning. You probably need a significant longer time to just start to put this on paper. We talked down on that end. Some of them are already saying, I'm going to look at ChatGPT. It's conversations that Marty and I were having yesterday, and this is one of those places, even as a teacher, I'm like, yes, do it. In this case, it's a place that's really beneficial. Don't do it with my homework, all right? Then you're not learning. That doesn't make sense. But in this case, you could find layers and elements of that. So the big thing for you guys, hopefully your understanding is like what periodization is, macro, meso, micro, and then begin to think of your own careers and own it for yourself. Some of you have coaches that do this stuff for you, and some of you do not, right? In fact, I would argue most probably don't. They just coach through the season, and then you may or may not see them again until the next fall. But if you want to be at the level that I would assume you want to be because you're sitting here at the OTC, then you got to own some of that on your own and begin to think forward and plan for yourself. And that could be every phase of that. You got a lot to unpack there. So I appreciate you paying attention. This was a heavy one. This one, I'm actually glad I got to, for Maurice, it didn't work out with timing. So I wanted to get this in the morning, not the last day. It's tomorrow night, you probably like, I don't want to hear this stuff. All right, any questions? All right, you have the document, make a copy of it, adopt it, adapt it, do whatever you want. Yep.